Vampires are a staple of modern pop culture, and TTRPGs are no exception. Of all the games that heavily feature these children of the night, Vampire the Masquerade is the most well-known and popular one. Spanning more than 3 decades of history, various rules editions, and even video games, the Kindred of Vampire the Masquerade have left their mark on tabletop RPGs and beyond. You might have become curious after hearing about it or watching an AP of people playing it, but wondered, what is this game actually about? Well, you have come to the right place to find an answer to this question. In this video, I want to give absolute beginners a brief introduction to the vast lore of Vampire the Masquerade. We will be going into the history of vampires, what actually is a vampire, their so-called clans and sects, and what player characters actually do in this game. By the end of this video, you should have a basic understanding of the core principles and should have an easier time navigating the world of darkness from the perspective of the Kindred. It bears repeating that this video is an introduction to the setting, so that people entirely new to this game have a starting point. This means I will not explain every little lore bit, leave out some stuff, and perhaps oversimplify aspects here and there. This is done to keep this video concise. I invite everyone who wants to delve deeper into topics mentioned here and get even more familiar with the setting. Without further ado, let us sink our fangs into the essential lore of Vampire the Masquerade. Let's start at the beginning. According to many vampires, the first of their kind was also the first murderer. When Cain killed his brother Abel, God punished him to walk the earth forever, unable to die. Cain made this curse his own and found a way to pass a part of it on to others. In doing so, he was also able to draw occult powers from it, which would become the vampiric gifts known as disciplines. The different mortals that Cain turned would each develop their own variation of the curse, and learn how to harness it in different ways. Vampires would spread all over the world, and many would openly or not exactly secretly rule in various locations. Who would be able to stand against an undead creature of the night, impervious to most weapons of the time and capable of wielding dark sorcery? Well, it turns out if enough humans work together and learn of your weaknesses, they can still destroy you. And so, many vampires, in especially Europe during the Middle Ages, found their final death at the hand of the Inquisition. The children of Cain learned in those times that, as mighty as they are, humanity can still be a threat. It was from the fires of the Inquisition that the Camarilla was born, an organization of vampires, now referring to each other as Kindred, that defined a set of laws known as the Traditions. These rules should guarantee that vampires could survive in the shadows, and from there pull the strings without humanity knowing they still existed. The traditions established by the Camarilla allowed the Kindred to make it into the modern Knights, but undeath is not without challenges. Under the rules of the Camarilla, the elder vampires rule over the younger, and other vampiric factions with less love for the traditions struggle against the Camarilla. Meanwhile, Some of these older vampires fall to the allure of the beckoning, a strange call that draws them away from their usual domains, leaving behind empty thrones and other positions of power. To make matters worse, a loose alliance of various government and private institutions, dubbed the Second Inquisition, has become aware of the existence and influence of Kindred, and their agents work overtime to hunt these so-called blank bodies. Some powerful vampires have already been destroyed by them, and it is only a matter of when, not if, until more will be found and turned to dust. It is in these turbulent modern nights in which your character will be brought into the fold. Most likely a young, relatively freshly turned Kindred, you exist in a time where you have opportunities to fill empty positions and climb an immortal hierarchy, but are also under more surveillance than ever before. Your fellow vampires will feign camaraderie, while already sharpening the knife with which they will stab you in the back when it suits them. You can trust no one, and yet you have to trust some to achieve your goals. And then there is also that unending hunger, this thirst for blood of the living, that beast inside your mind screaming at you to give in to its urges. Welcome to Unlive, Kindred. Welcome to Vampire the Masquerade. First of all Kindred are immortal. Well, sort of. Decapitation, fire, and sunlight can still destroy a vampire, but most other forms of harm cannot. Vampires can recover from the most grievous of wounds and return to whatever state they were in on the night of their embrace. Truly, all kindred are the living dead. They do not need to eat, drink, or breathe. They also do not sleep, but instead, during the day fall into a coma-like state that is closer to death than sleep. Sunlight and fire are a vampire's greatest banes, while things like garlic, crosses, and running water only present challenges to a few kindred. Stakes, however, have some effect on them. If one is shot through the heart of a vampire, they are completely paralyzed and fall into a state called torpor. All vampires crave for blood, the very essence of life. Sooner or later, every kindred must hunt and sate their thirst for it, a motivation driven by a dark passenger every vampire has in their soul: the beast. The beast is no actual entity, no demon that lives in the undead corpse of a kindred, but it is a presence that urges all vampires to follow their dark instincts, to stalk prey, drink their blood, and destroy whatever is in one's way. As if having to drink the blood of the living and never seeing a sunrise again was not bad enough, all kindred are permanently locked in an inner battle between their remaining humanity and the dark urges the beast beckons them to surrender to. The vampiric curse does offer some gifts in the form of disciplines. These supernatural powers allow vampires to run as fast as the wind, shapeshift into animals, and even master the secrets of blood sorcery. All clans have a natural aptitude for certain disciplines, and every vampire masters other elements of these gifts. Vampires create new vampires through a process known as the embrace. When a kindred drains all the blood from a mortal, they can pass some of their vampiric vitae into them and turn them into a new kindred. The new vampire is called a child, and their creator is their so-called sire. These shared traits of all kindred give you an impression of their society. Damned to hide during the day and driven by the voice of their darkest desires, these nocturnal denizens dress their interactions in codes, civility, and dignity, while underneath that thin veneer roils and rages their beast, and the curse that drives them to take from the living and to exist in this state until the end of days. Religious scholars of kindred history believe that the 13 clans trace their roots back to the so-called antediluvians, those vampires who were turned by the very first vampires embraced by Cain himself. From these ancient vampires come traits, capabilities, and modifications to the vampiric curse that have been passed down from sire to child. Your character is always of the same clan as their sire. There are 13 clans in the modern Knights, though not all of them have gone through the ages unchanged. Some clans have been usurped, and others are born from new unity among separate bloodlines. Your character will be a member of one of those clans. Your clan mechanically defines to which disciplines you have an innate access, and how your vampiric curse is modified. For example, Toreador can easily learn the powers of Auspex, Celerity, and Presence, but are also at a disadvantage in any environment that is not beautiful or aesthetically pleasing. Your choice of clan might also impact your character's social standing and initial allegiances. While not all clans have strong internal bonds, some rely on their blood siblings to form a strong front against enemies. There are also the caitiff, or clanless. These kindred do not know to which clan they belong, and their curse and disciplines might not align with any known clan. At best, a caitiff can pretend to be a member of an existing clan, and at worst, will be hunted in certain cities. In the modern Knights, thin-blooded also become more common. The curse can become so diluted in young kindred that they do not suffer many of its elements, while also not being granted the full scope of vampiric powers. These thin-blooded can walk during the day and use their vampiric blood for thin blood alchemy, brewing concoctions and potions that capitalize on the flexibility of their diluted curse. While clans divide vampires by blood, the kindred also organize into various political and somewhat philosophical factions known as sects. Specific clans usually pledge allegiance to one of these sects, but members of all clans can be found in all sects. Most campaigns, or chronicles, of Vampire the Masquerade focus on the Camarilla, but I will briefly illustrate also the Anarchs and Sabbat in this section. Most widespread in the modern Knights is the Camarilla, also known as the Ivory Tower. This faction was a response to the fires of the Inquisition during the Middle Ages, in which many kindred were destroyed. Vampires had learned back then, if they were not careful, humanity was still a threat to them. And so, the Camarilla was formed, and they spread what is known as the traditions, a set of rules every kindred is supposed to follow, to keep their existence hidden from humanity and thrive in the shadows. Cities under Camarilla control have a strict hierarchy, in which a prince rules a city, which is called a domain, and is supported by a council of primogen, usually the elders of a clan within the city. This is no democracy, however. Princes, which is a gender-neutral term in this case, are autocrats and can use any means they believe necessary to enforce the traditions. Combine this with a rigid hierarchy in which young vampires are exploited by the older ones, and you can see that even though the Camarilla's traditions provide safety, their structures in the end benefit the old and punish the young. An answer to the Camarilla are the Anarchs. The name of this sect is perhaps a bit on the nose, but it gets the point across. The Anarchs do in principle support the traditions, but rebel against the strict hierarchy of the Camarilla. In many ways, an Anarch-run city seems very similar to one led by the Camarilla, with some differences in the names of offices and titles. In some cities, the Anarchs are not even an independent sect, but more of a movement on the fringes of the Camarilla. Still, their challenge to the ancient authority of the Ivory Tower draws young, zealous, and ambitious Kindred to their cause. Finally, there is the Sabbat. This faction entirely rejects the traditions of the Camarilla, and where the Kindred loyal to the Ivory Tower consider the vampiric origin stories around Cain to be nothing but myth, the Sabbat sees them as truth and prepares for the vengeful return of the original vampire and his first blood-bound children. Until recently, the Sabbat violently protected their cities, many of their actions leading to unwanted attention from mortals. Ever since the Beckoning and the rise of the Second Inquisition, many of these cities have been abandoned by them. No sign of Sabbat hierarchy or even small groups left. What is known is that many followed their elders that heard the Beckoning to go to distant places and fight in what they call the Gehenna War. Well, you now heard a lot of terminology and history, but what is it that characters in Vampire the Masquerade actually do? What kind of stories can you tell in this game? The base game assumes that characters are relatively recently embraced Kindred, coming into a time where many elders have either been destroyed by the Second Inquisition or followed the mysterious Beckoning. You and your fellow remaining vampires have ample opportunities to fill these open vacancies. The city you exist in might suddenly find itself in need of a new prince, and your characters represent a band of opportunistic bloodsuckers who want to work together to get at least one of you on that throne. But Kindred are often egotistical beings, so do not expect your fellow conspirators to not have plans of their own. For groups who enjoy a bit of player versus player and backstabbing, Vampire the Masquerade is a game that offers ample opportunities for politicking and scheming. This political/social dynamic of the game is contrasted by the fact that you are a blood-sucking monster with a voice in your head that will try to overpower you, bring you to hunt prey, and give in to the darkest side of yourself. What does it mean to exist in modern nights, play at nocturnal politics, while you know that it is just a thin veneer of civilization and decadence over the thirst you must give into? What does it mean for your character to drink the blood of humans, proof of how disconnected they have become from friends, family, and lovers? This duality will play a major role in your Vampire the Masquerade games. You and your fellow Kindred will walk a tightrope between acquiring power and influence, avoiding unwanted attention, and not slowly giving in to the beast inside. You will write chronicles about the moments in which you triumphed over your political enemies, fell to the temptations of the beast, and tried to flee from the watchful eyes of the Second Inquisition. Will you rule your city or become crushed under the boots of others? Will you hold on to the small shred of humanity or show everyone the monster you truly are? Your own game of Vampire the Masquerade will answer those questions. If all of this sounds interesting to you, definitely check out Vampire the Masquerade. I hope this short introduction was useful to you to get a sense of what the game and setting is about. As said, this is by no means a complete deep dive, but if you do have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching, take care, stay safe, and bye-bye.